Hey guys, welcome to week 2 of our Friday wrap series on the history of the age pension in Australia. As I said last week, I was trying to do some research on the future viability of the age pension. How many people are working? How many people are on the pension? Can the government afford the pension, as well as roads and hospitals and ambulance and fireys and police and military and all the services which our country has, which are funded by the taxpayer? Is something going to give? If so, what is it? When is it going to be? I was trying to find that out, and what I came across was a document which gave a real fascinating insight into the history of the age pension. I found it fascinating. I thought there was some great information in there, and you might learn a thing or two as I did. So that's why we started this 3-week series on the age pension. So we shall get straight into it this week. Last week we talked about a general history of it. We talked about the fact that it was started in 1909, that the age pension commenced. 65 for a male, 60 for a female was the age eligibilities, and we went through a history of changes from that point. What I want to do this week is talk about eligibility from assets and income test and how that's evolved to where we are now and where it's come from. But before we go back to where it's come from, let's have a look at where we are right now. So we have this system called the assets test and the income test, and the way in which it's worked out is if you're entitled to the pension based on your age, you will be analysed based on your assets and your income, and the test that provides you with the lowest entitlement to pension is the test that they will use, and that subsequent amount of pension is what you are entitled to and what you will receive. So with the assets test, it's broken down into homeowners and non-homeowners. If you own your home and you are single, you can have assets up to $268,000 and be entitled to a full pension. If you have assets over $583,000, you have no entitlement. If you're a couple, you can have up to $402,500 and get a full pension, $876,500, and you're not entitled. For a non-homeowner, you can have more assets because you don't have a home. You've got to pay rent, that sort of thing. So a single person can have up to $482,500, over $797,500, and they're no entitlement. A couple can have up to $616,000 and get the full pension, and over $1.091 million. And they receive none. So you see down there, every $1,000 of assets over these thresholds, the pension entitlement will drop by $3 a fortnight. So that's the assets test. With the income test, we have income that you receive, and if you go over that level of income, then your entitlement will reduce until you breach it in full and you have no entitlement. So there's two sorts of incomes: included income and excluded income. So employment income over $300 a fortnight, commissions, rental income, deemed income from bank accounts. We'll explain that very soon. Other ones which are not or excluded income, the first $300 of your employment income a fortnight, government payments, and a couple of extra ones which are not counted towards the income for the purposes of assessing your eligibility to the age pension. So, deemed income. This has gone down due to COVID just recently, but for a single person, you can have assets up to $53,000, and they will be deemed to earn 0.25%. Over $53,000, 2.25%, and that's the amount for a couple. And then, I'm kind of flying through this, guy, so you have to keep up with me this week. Any income, we're talking about included income. If you're a single and you earn up to that much a year, 4,628, you get the full pension. If you're a couple, you can earn up to that much and you get the full pension. Anything over these amounts, you have no entitlement. You're earning too much. And again, for every dollar over the pension rate threshold, the pension will reduce by 50 cents. So that's where we are at the moment. Good information because it's current, it's relevant. Let's have a look at the start. Now, I apologize. This is a lot of words and a lot of talking. So if you're interested, please keep up. All right, in the beginning, the value of property, both real and personal, could not exceed £310. If it did, that was exceeding the threshold. Where the value of a property for a single pensioner included their residence and exceeded £100, the pension was reduced by £1 for every £10 over £100. Similar to what we just went through. You've got a minimum threshold and it reduces as you exceed that. Where the property did not include your residence or that produced income, it reduced by £1 for every £10 over £50. The pensions of couples were reduced in the same way, but the amounts were halved to £50 and £25. This is because each member of a couple was deemed to receive half the couple's income and half the couple's property. So they just doubled it. And from the point of view of income over £26 a year reduced your pension on a pound for pound basis. So in the beginning, it was kind of similar to what we have right now. And like I said, they've chopped and changed this. This document here goes through all of these changes, and it seems like every day they're looking at it and making changes, which makes it hard to keep up with, but it is what it is. So from December 1912, a pensioner's home was excluded from assessment. 1932, we mentioned last year with the Great Depression, and there was some changes that were made. The amount of pension paid was reduced for a couple of years. Some changes. So this is pretty interesting. In 1932, eligibility for a pension ceased where you had relatives that could adequately maintain the pensioner. Relatives could be required to make compulsory contributions to a pensioner's maintenance. Can you imagine that now? Transfer of property worth more than £100 made for no consideration in the prior 5 years could prevent eligibility. So now we have gifting rules, same sort of thing. Pensions paid to a pensioner could be recovered from their estate after they died. Wow. And from June 34, relatives could no longer be required to contribute to the pensioner's maintenance. So that was a couple of years that one was in play. August 1946, certain items became exempt when assessing the value of property, furniture, insurance policies, things like that. And when I mentioned before money over £26 a year, well, from 1946 that was increased to £1 a week, £52 a year. All right, skipping forward a couple of decades, from 1973, the means test was abolished for those over 75, and from 1975, it was abolished for those over 70. From 1976, the means test was replaced by an income-only test. So assets were no longer taken into account. So that's massive. But any income derived from those assets was included. So from 1976, we only had an income test. I mentioned before, we've got the income and the assets test. 1976, only the income. But hang on a minute, from March 1985, the assets test was introduced. And as I said earlier, the assets test or the incomes test, they will both be used to assess your eligibility. Whichever one produces the lowest entitlement is the one they're going to use. Fair enough. With the assets test came some exemption when that came about. So if you're a single, the first 70,000, if you're a homeowner, if you're a couple, the first 100,000 of assets was exempt. And for a non-homeowner, 120 and 150. So that amount of assets was exempt in those instances. All right, last slide. I've gone on and on and on. In 1996, deeming as we know it was introduced. So I went through deeming before, where there's an amount that you are deemed. It's not the actual amount that investment makes for you. It could make 10 times the amount. It's the amount that it's deemed based on its value times that percentage. When assessing income under the income test, the total value of all financial assets were added together. A rate of 5% was deemed to have been received on the first 30,000 and 7% above those limits. And you can see right now it's a lot lower right at the moment. Financial assets included bank accounts, cash, term deposits, managed funds, and they did not include home, contents, other real estate, cars, boats, caravans, antiques, coin, stamps, etc., etc. So a little bit of a history in terms of how you are entitled based on your assets and your liabilities, where it's gone. That's like 10% of it. There's so much more, but I've gone for 9 minutes already talking about that. So I'm going to leave it there. That's week 2 of the Friday Wrap. Next week, we are going to talk about what we set out to talk about last week. Fingers crossed I find the answer. I'm not so confident, but we'll give it a shot. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in this far. Hope you have a great weekend. We will talk soon.